January 22, 1943. The first pale light of dawn filtered through the dense canopy of Guadal Canal. Mist clung to the broad leaves of banyan trees, curling around massive roots that had rooted themselves in the jungle floor decades before the war began. A damp, earthy scent mixed with the acrid tang of spent gunpowder from the previous week's battles. Somewhere to the east, distant artillery boomed faintly, a reminder that the fight for control of the Pacific was far from over. The air was still, but the stillness was deceptive. In the silence, the jungle whispered. Birds chirped, insects hummed, and somewhere in the undergrowth, a branch snapped. Crouched within the ruins of a recently captured Japanese bunker, Second Lieutenant John George peered through the scope of a rifle that many in his battalion had ridiculed. The weapon, a Winchester Model 70 sporting a Lyman Alaskan scope and Griffin and Howe mount, weighed less than the standard issue Garand, but it had arrived just in time for a mission that would test both man and machine. George, 27 years old, Illinois' state shooting champion, had spent weeks in anticipation, but until now, his rifle had been nothing more than a promise. Through the fog and shadows, George's eyes tracked a banyan tree approximately 240 yards distant. The tree's massive trunk and network of branches offered perfect concealment for trained Japanese snipers, and for the past 72 hours, these soldiers had claimed 14 American lives. The battalion had tried everything: patrols, ambushes, flares, but the snipers adapted faster than the Americans could respond. Morale was fraying. Fear hung over the men like a low cloud. George adjusted the rifle's elevation and held his breath. Every muscle was taut. Every sound filtered out except the faintest movement of a leaf. And then, just a slight shift, a figure emerged. A Japanese sniper, dark against the dappled morning light, perched high in the fork of a branch. George exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger, and the first shot rang through the clearing. The bullet struck true. The sniper fell, disappearing through the branches. George worked the bolt, loaded another round, and scanned for movement. Over the next 4 days, in a series of engagements that would become a testament to precision, patience, and nerve, George would kill 11 enemy snipers. 11 men whose lives had been trained to end others, now silenced by a cheap civilian rifle that had been written off as a curiosity by his peers. The story of George and his rifle is not just a tale of marksman skill. It is a study in the psychology of warfare, the unexpected effectiveness of civilian arms adapted for combat, and the profound impact one disciplined, skilled individual can have on the tide of a small, but strategically significant campaign. The origins of the rifle are almost comical when viewed from the perspective of military pragmatism. The Model 70 was purchased by George with 2 years of National Guard pay. It had been shipped via military mail, arriving long after his battalion had deployed. Officers called it a toy, a mail-order sweetheart, a weapon suitable perhaps for hunting deer, but certainly not for jungle combat. And yet it was precisely these qualities, its lightweight, the smooth bolt action, the clarity of its optics, that made it ideal for a lone sniper operating in dense, unforgiving terrain. At just over 9 pounds, with a 5-round bolt-action magazine and 2.5 power Lyman Alaskan scope, the rifle was outclassed on paper by the standard issue Springfield Garand 8 rounds, semi-automatic, heavier, less maneuverable in the tight confines of the jungle. But war is not fought on paper. It is fought in rain-soaked trenches, under the branches of ancient banyans, in silence broken only by a single, decisive shot. The Guadal Canal itself was a brutal adversary. Thick, humid air settled into every fold of clothing, every crevice of equipment. Rain fell in sheets, turning trails into rivulets of mud, masking sound but reducing visibility. Snipers thrived here. The Japanese had spent months learning the terrain, climbing trees and using every natural feature to conceal their presence. Each sniper was trained not merely to shoot, but to survive, to wait for hours, even days, motionless, calculating wind, light, and the subtle habits of the men they hunted. George's preparation was meticulous. Each rifle component was cleaned of cosmoline that had protected it during shipping, every sight adjustment tested, every round carefully loaded. He carried no spotter, no radio, just the rifle, a canteen, and 60 rounds of ammunition. He moved with the patience of a predator, shifting only when necessary, blending into shadows, allowing the jungle to conceal him. The engagements themselves were tense studies in suspense. On the morning of the first encounter, George watched a sniper branch sway faintly. He calculated distance, adjusted for wind, controlled his breathing, and fired. The recoil of the rifle was minimal, the shot precise. The first kill was immediate, brutal, and silent to all but the jungle itself. He then worked systematically, scanning each tree, waiting for subtle movement, eliminating targets one by one. Over the next 3 days, George killed 8 more snipers. Each shot carried not only the weight of technical skill, but also the psychological burden of war. He knew that each life taken was a trained soldier, experienced, capable of killing his comrades. Yet he had no choice. The jungle itself seemed to close around him as he operated alone, constantly aware that any miscalculation could be fatal. The psychological toll was as significant as the technical challenge. For the American troops, the presence of a single, capable marksman restored a fragile confidence. The fear that had hung over supply routes, patrols, and rest periods began to lift. Morale, long at risk from snipers hidden in seemingly benign trees, found a counterbalance. For the Japanese, each loss was invisible, unpredictable, a threat from an unseen adversary who used skill and patience rather than brute force. The rifle, a civilian hunting weapon, became a symbol of unpredictability and ingenuity. It demonstrated that, in skilled hands, cheap and unassuming tools could outperform standardized military equipment in specialized scenarios. The smooth bolt action, glass, clear optics, and lightweight allowed George to operate effectively for hours, repositioning, calculating, and delivering precise shots. Comparatively, Japanese snipers relied on heavier, military-grade Arisaka Type 98 rifles. These weapons were powerful, reliable, and designed for trained soldiers in conventional combat. Yet in the dense, shifting environment of the Guadal Canal groves, the Arisaka became cumbersome. The scope adjustments were limited. The weight impeded prolonged concealment. George's weapon, dismissed as inadequate by his own officers, exploited these limitations. The operational history of these 4 days illustrates not only personal skill, but also tactical innovation. George's methodical elimination of snipers cleared the Point Cruz groves in a fraction of the time his battalion had struggled for weeks. The precise timing, patient observation, and deliberate use of terrain demonstrate an understanding of sniper doctrine that few could match in the Pacific theater at the time. By January 25th, 11 Japanese snipers lay dead. George had fired 12 rounds at these specific targets, scoring 11 hits, with no friendly casualties. His actions shifted not only the tactical balance in the immediate area, but also forced a reevaluation of how civilian marksmanship could complement military operations. Commanders began to recognize that skill and ingenuity could rival standardization and mass firepower in select circumstances. The psychological impact extended beyond the battlefield. George became a figure of quiet legend among his fellow soldiers, a man who had turned ridicule into respect, fear into opportunity. The jungle, previously a domain dominated by the enemy, now contained an unseen predator capable of matching and exceeding the lethality of trained snipers. The comparison between the civilian rifle and military hardware underscores the subtle genius of George's campaign. Where the Garand allowed rapid fire, but at the cost of weight and noisier recoil, the Winchester Model 70 provided silent, deliberate power, perfect for stealth and precision. It was a reminder that technological superiority is never absolute. Context, skill, and ingenuity can redefine effectiveness on the battlefield. Historically, the actions of John George and his cheap rifle resonate beyond Guadal Canal. They influenced the formation of sniper training protocols in the U.S. Army, highlighting the importance of marksmanship observation, patience, and adaptability. The campaign demonstrated that a single skilled soldier, operating independently with the right tool, could achieve results that eluded entire battalions under conventional methods. By the end of the 4 days, the Point Cruz groves were cleared. The threat that had cost 14 American lives was neutralized. Commanders recognized not only the skill of George, but also the strategic value of precision marksmanship. His actions cemented a legacy that in warfare, the combination of human skill and the right tool can redefine the odds, even in the face of overwhelming danger. The final verdict is clear. This cheap rifle, dismissed by peers and initially by officers, became an instrument of tactical brilliance. Its history is a lesson in resourcefulness, in the power of preparation, and in the profound impact a single, disciplined individual can have on a complex and deadly environment. In 4 days, 11 trained snipers were eliminated, lives were saved, and the capabilities of American marksmen were redefined. The story of John George is more than an anecdote of battlefield success. It is a testament to the enduring human qualities that shape history: patience, courage, observation, and ingenuity. It reminds us that sometimes, history is not made by the largest weapons or the greatest numbers, but by those who understand the subtle interplay of environment, skill, and opportunity. And as the fog lifted from the groves that morning, and sunlight filtered through the banyan branches, one man and his cheap rifle had rewritten the rules of engagement for jungle sniping. If John George's mail order rifle story gave you chills, hit that like button. Every like helps us uncover more forgotten battlefield legends. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story of skill, courage, and danger that history almost forgot. Comment below and tell us, where are you watching from? United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or somewhere else? Share your connection to these battles or soldiers in your family. Be part of keeping these heroes alive. Thanks for watching, and for making sure the story of John George, the man who killed 11 enemy snipers in just 4 days, doesn't fade into silence. These legends deserve to be remembered. And you're helping write history.